To my madness, we've talked about the my people thing, and I think that's the crux of what I'm getting at, or what I'm trying to get at, because I do believe that there's something's going to happen that's going to shake the church. Okay? It's going to shake the world of believers. All believers. And I'm not sure what that is. I'm not even going to predict. I mean, we're coming up on what looks like it's going to be an economic collapse. We've got all kinds of candidates of the things that it's going to take to shake people or to open their eyes just a little bit more. Some of them, when they see it, are going to turn away like the first soil. They don't want anything to do with it. Others are going to say, wait a minute, hold on. I've talked in the past about Mount Sinai has been discovered. And it's about to be released. Saudi and Israel are in an agreement, and it's NEOM. If you want to study more about it, just look it up online. NEOM. That's that thing. What if they show the ark? I mean, if they revealed. Now, there's a bunch of people that know Sinai's out there. They know that many of the maps that we have today show it in the wrong place. It's not in the Sinai Peninsula. It's in Saudi Arabia. Okay, that's where it is. Well, what happens when that gets revealed on a worldwide scale? All of a sudden, that makes this true. Undeniably true. It's not speculation anymore. It's not, well, you believe what you want to believe. I'm going to believe, yeah. Okay, you go ahead and believe what you want to believe. I'm going to believe what's written. And that type of thing will wake people up, and they're going to look for answers. And I'm trying to prepare myself to have those answers. And I'm remembering very vividly how I got to where I'm at on this path that I took. And I made some pretty serious mistakes in the beginning. I've shared with you guys. And I hurt my family. Not intentionally, but I did. Because I saw things were different than what I had been taught. And that shaking up made me double think everything. Double check everything. And so over these past, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years, however long it's been, I've been churning in my mind, what is the best way to get people to get it, to understand? What do you have to learn? What should you learn first? What should you understand first? And after years of that, the thing that I came up with that you should understand first is who his people are. That's why we're going through this like we're going through it. Understanding who his people are eliminates a bunch of confusion down the road. And we know his people are descendant from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but we also know there's others that get grafted in. And there's ways that happens. He chooses, not us. And before we go off and say, yippity-doo-dah, he chose us, there's responsibility that comes with being chosen. You're chosen. Ephesians says you're saved by grace. And then in verse 10 it says, for good works, the works that he created for you to do from the beginning. He's got a plan for us. We're going to see some of that today as we go through this, like we did last week and the week before. Things work the smoothest, and he works through his believers the best when they're obedient. When he says to do something, they do it. Guess what? Some pretty spectacular things can happen. So, with that, we're going to continue on in our study. My people, we're thinking about my people as we go through this. We've got a focus. The my people, him being in charge of everything. I allude to it in this study. I'm going to say it now too. He's not reacting with what we're going on. He's not reacting to what Pharaoh does. He's orchestrating. Okay? There's a couple of verses in that song, I didn't write them down, but there was a couple of things in some of the songs that we were singing that alluded to that same thing. You know, there's been a lot of things that Yeshua died when he was supposed to die. Revelation tells us he was slain from the foundation of the earth. That's one plan from the foundation of the earth. We haven't gotten there yet, but we'll be there shortly when Exodus 12 kicks in and Passover is introduced to us. That's part of the plan. Okay? We're still following that same plan. Ultimately, the Word is what people need to read and listen to. Not me. They need to just go through this knowing that when you're chosen, the Spirit's indwelling you, and the Spirit is not only the transmitter, but also the receiver of what Yah's trying to tell us. Okay? So as we get into here, we remember Pharaoh doesn't know Yah. I don't know him. Why should I let you go? Yah's taking the time now to introduce himself to Pharaoh in a lot of different ways. Okay? We're going to look at some of them. So picking up in Exodus chapter 7, verse 1, Yah says to Moses, "See, I have made you as God to Pharaoh, and Aaron, your brother, shall be your prophet." Now I want to talk about this for just a second, because that's the second time that Yah has brought that up in the book of Exodus. The first time was in Exodus 4. In Exodus 4, he told Moses, "I have made you as God, as Elohim, to Aaron and to his people." Okay? Moses was going to be like representing God to his people. This time, it's to Pharaoh and the picture Egypt, the world. Okay? Verse 2, "You shall speak all that I command you, and Aaron your brother shall tell Pharaoh to send the children of Israel out of his land." Verse 3, "And I will harden Pharaoh's heart and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt." Remember, Egypt is a picture of the world, okay? He's going to harden Pharaoh's heart. He's going to use Pharaoh's momentum against him. And he's going to multiply his signs and his wonders in the world. He's going to do this in the greater Exodus too. I don't know how similar there's going to be some similarities, I'm sure. In verse 4, "Pharaoh will not heed you." Don't you love it when Yah has you do something that he already knows the answer to, and you know but this is the way that it went. "He will not heed you," so that there's a reason he's not going to heed you. "So that I may lay my hand on Egypt and bring my armies and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments." When we get to the greater Exodus, when we're going through that, he's going to be doing the same thing. He is going to be bringing his people out of the world. At the same time, there's a lot of judgments going on. Verse 5, "And the Egyptians shall know that I am Yah when I stretch out my hand on Egypt and bring out the children of Israel from among them." He is making a differentiation. He's doing that. And it's not only Pharaoh that's going to know, all the Egyptians are going to know. And of course, we've already read ahead. We know that happens every year when we read it, doesn't it, Amanda? Every year. Verse 6, Moses and Aaron did so, just as Yah commanded them, so they did. And in verse 7, Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron was 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. So that tells, that's just a marker, give us a time frame. And this also touches on what we've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. Moses was away from his family for a long time, from the time his mama quit nursing him, weaned him, and took him to Pharaoh's court. Now, he could have, we know he went back at least once. That didn't go well. He ended up taking somebody out. But he wasn't that close to Aaron and his family. And so I think this is part of the apprehension of him speaking to the Israelites. Okay? He's not as close to them, but Aaron is. But Yah's got a handle on this, okay? In verse 8, Yah spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, when Pharaoh speaks to you, saying, show a miracle for yourselves, then you shall say to Aaron, take your rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and let it become a serpent. The rod is the Hebrew number 4294, and it's a branch. It's figuratively a tribe. It's also a rod, rather for chastising or correction, for ruling, for throwing, for walking, or figuratively a support of life. It's a rod. He's casting that on the ground, and it becomes a serpent. Well, the serpent is the Hebrew word 8577. It's tenian. It is a marine or land monster, a sea serpent, a dragon, a sea monster, a serpent. That doesn't, the Hebrew definition of this doesn't help us out a lot. But you guys know I talk about context a lot, right? So let's look at what the Egyptians are seeing when they see that staff become a serpent. Because according to the Egyptians, it was a god, Apapus, an Egyptian demon of chaos, who had the form of a serpent and was the foe of the sun god Re. It represented all that was outside the ordered cosmos. And although many serpents symbolized divinity and royalty, Apapus threatened the underworld, and it symbolized evil. So when that thing was cast down on the ground, that symbolized evil to those who were receiving it. Okay? Yah knew this. I'm sure Moses knew this. That's probably one of the reasons Moses jumped back when it happened the first time. Yeah. He knew it represented evil. Okay? Because he was brought up in this culture, right? So they're seeing all of a sudden. But Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. So the magicians of Egypt, they also did like manner with their enchantments. They were able to do it too. Now let's just step into Pharaoh's sandals for just a second, okay? This raises a red flag for me. If my wise guys are able to produce evil, I don't know if I want my wise guys there, you know? For every man that threw down his rod, it became serpents. Now look at this. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. What is Yah telling Egypt, telling Pharaoh at this time? I will swallow evil. I am going to overcome the evil. I don't think he missed it.
thought he was saying like, I'm capable of more evil than you are.
Yeah. But but he's going to, in the long run, he overcomes evil with good, right? In the end of the story.
And he uses evil to
He
make-
does? Yes, he does. All right, let's read Exodus 7:14 through 25. We're going to get into the first plague here. They didn't call that a plague with the snake, but I wanted to point that out because
So he trumps him.
he does. I gotta watch you too. All right. All right, 14 through 25. Then Yah said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is stubborn. He refuses to let the people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning, just as he is going out to the water, and position yourself to meet him on the bank of the Nile. And you shall take in your hand the staff that was turned into the serpent. This is how we know it went from a serpent back to a staff, okay? All right? And you shall say to him, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews sent me to you, saying, let my people go, so that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, you have not listened to me up until now. This is what Yah says. By this you shall know that I am Yah. Behold, I am going to strike the water that is in the Nile with my staff that is in my hand, and it will be turned into blood. And then the fish that are in the Nile will die. The Nile will stink, and the Egyptians will no longer be able to drink the water from the Nile. Then Yah said to Moses, say to Aaron, take your staff and extend your hand over the waters of Egypt, over the rivers and over the streams and over the pools and over all their reservoirs of water, so that they may become blood. And there will be blood through all the land of Egypt, both in the containers of wood and the containers of stone. So Moses and Aaron did as Yah had commanded, and he lifted up the staff and struck the water that was in the Nile in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants. And all the water that was in the Nile was turned to blood. Then the fish that were in the Nile died, and the Nile stank. That's an understatement. So that the Egyptians could not drink the water from the Nile. And the blood was through all the land of Egypt. But the soothsayers, the priests of Egypt, did the same with their secret arts. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he did not listen to them, just as Yah had said. Then Pharaoh turned and went into his house with no concern even for this. So all the Egyptians dug around the Nile for water to drink, because they could not drink the water that was in the Nile. 7 days passed after Yah struck the Nile. In verse 15, he tells them, go to Pharaoh in the morning when he goes out to the water, and take that rod with you, the one that had become a serpent. That rod's going to become important. It is a form of chastening. It is a form of leading. It is a form of discipline. It is a form, however you want to look at it here, he's using that rod to make a point. And you shall say to him, Yahweh Elohim of the Hebrews has sent me, let my people go. Again, he has a people. He knows we're held captive by the world right now. That they may serve me in the wilderness. And then Yah says, until now, you would not hear. Then Yah says, by this you shall know that I am Yah. And then he says what he's going to do. He's going to strike the water, and it's going to turn to blood. He's going to strike the water with the rod, and it's going to turn to blood. And the fish, they're going to die, and it's going to stink, for sure. And then they're not going to be able to drink the water out of the river. Now check this out. Khnum is the water god of Egypt. He is the water god of Egypt, thought to rule over all the water, including the rivers and the lakes. And he was associated with the source of the Nile. Now, how many of you remember from when we were going to school, whether it was one room or many, how important is that Nile River? It's everything to them, right? Y'all just turned the life into death, didn't he? He's going directly up against one of the Egyptians' gods. Wikipedia, not my favorite source for anything, but it's just a second source. I did this on a few of them, but not all of them. I've gone through these definitions. But it says essentially the same thing. The god of the source of the Nile. Okay? That's the mind of the Egyptians. Okay? When Yah does this, the god of the Nile just got whooped. Okay? Is how a logical person would have said that. We're not dealing with that. Happy was another one, another god that the Egyptians had, and this particular one was a water and a fertility god. Okay? So now he went up against two of them in the same moment. He went up against two of their gods. Remember, Pharaoh doesn't know who he is. Who is this Yah? I don't know who he is. Let me introduce you. The god of the annual flooding, they attributed that flooding to that same god. Osiris was the god of agriculture. Again, did I say it wrong, but Osiris. So, the god of agriculture, because there's nothing going to grow like that. All right? And this is another one saying this is, and I did that to show you, he went up against them three gods in his first plague. There's a purpose for what he's doing. There's a purpose for what he's doing. Pharaoh didn't know him. So he's given Pharaoh the opportunity to understand who he is. All right. In Exodus 7, verse 19, God said to Moses, say to Aaron, take your rod and stretch it out. Now, he told him what to do. Now he's telling Aaron, go do it. Hold it over the waters, over the streams, over the rivers. This puzzled me for a lot of years. If they did all the water, how did the Egyptians turn around? How did them wise guys of Pharaoh's turn around and do it if they already did all the water?
Because they were digging it out of the
exactly.
ground.
Exactly. All the water that was above the surface of the earth turned to blood. They were able to dig and get water underneath, and that's how they did it. Verse 20. Moses and Aaron did so just as Yah commanded. They struck the waters, and of course it all turned to blood. The fish in the river died, and they stank. Now I don't know what kind of how big of a staple the fish was in their diet, but it just decreased a bunch if it was by what they had, okay? So it's affecting the water, it's affecting the agriculture, and it's affecting the immediate food source of the fish. All right?
And their animals.
And their animals, yes. They couldn't drink without it being dug up. So it's not a little, hi, I'm here. It's like getting hit in the head with a sledgehammer. Okay? And he walks away. His heart grew hard. He didn't heed him. Yah knew that was coming though. But he's going to show the whole world over these plagues. Pharaoh turned and went, and neither was his heart moved. Verse 24, they dug around. That's how they got more water. They dug around to drink the water. And after it was 7 days it went on like this. 7 days after Yah struck the river. Frogs. This is a happy topic. Exodus 8. In verse 1, Yah spoke to Moses. Go to Pharaoh and say to him, thus says Yah, let my people go, that they may serve me. The message is the same. But if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all your territory with frogs, so that the river will bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into your house and into your bedroom, on your bed, into the houses of your servants, on your people, in your ovens, and in your kneading bowls. And the frogs shall come up on you, on your people, and on all your servants. There was a god for frogs. Egypt had a god for just about everything. Heqet was the goddess of childbirth and fertility. Childbirth and fertility. And she was depicted as a frog. Okay? Heqet. And the frogs symbolize the fullness and new life. That's what that was all about. Okay? So, here he comes up against this god of the frogs, right? The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, stretch out your hand with your rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause the frogs to come up on the land of Egypt. So Aaron stretched out his hand, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. They'd never seen this many frogs. And the magicians did so with their enchantment and brought up frogs on the land of Egypt. And this was a duplication, maybe an illusion.
You would think they'd get rid of them.
That was the next red flag. I've got the wrong wise guys.
Yeah.
If they're doing this, right?
Yeah.
It was a duplication of what Yah has already done. Just like the water to blood was a duplication of what Yah has already done. They didn't do it on their own. I don't think they could have done it without Yah doing it first. But we see all the time people trying to duplicate what Yah does. Like determine whether you're male or female. That's already been determined. The frogs and the water to blood also happened where Yah's people stayed in Goshen. Okay? This is a sign. We're going to see some of the things in the greater Exodus that everybody else is going through too, as part of the waking up. Now remember, it's been hundreds of years since it's been hundreds of years since Abraham. Let's start there, okay? It's been hundreds of years since Abraham. And they've not, what's a good way to say it? They are influenced heavily by the culture of the world. Let me say it that way. Yah's chosen people are influenced heavily by the culture of the world. I think we still have that issue today. Now, the enchantments that these guys were doing, these wise guys, it says properly covered a secret by implication, incantation, also secrecy. That's why I think it's covertly. So it wasn't a duplication as much as it was being duped, being faked out like a magician, a sleight of hand. And I don't think they, like I said earlier, I don't think they could have done it if Yah hadn't have done it first, because they would have never thought of it. Verse 8 says, Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, entreat Yah that he may, Pharaoh is calling to Moses and Aaron. He says, entreat Yah that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may sacrifice to Yah. So he's got Pharaoh's attention on this one. Okay? He's got his attention. And then look what Yah has Moses do. Moses said to Pharaoh, accept the honor of saying, when I shall intercede for you, for your servants and for your people, to destroy the frogs from you and your houses, that they may remain in the river only. Moses is telling Pharaoh, you pick the time. What's happening by that is Pharaoh's going to know that he's the one that picked the time, and it could have been nobody other than Yah that did it. Oftentimes, when I have friends of mine or people I don't even know sometimes that are struggling through something, and they're going through some really difficult times, and they're looking around like there's no hope, I pray specifically for Yah to touch them in a way that only they know. Only reveal yourself to them in a way that only they know.
Confirmation.
Exactly. Specifically for them. Touch them in a way that they know it can only be from you. That's what's happening here. Moses is saying, Pharaoh, you pick the day. Because it's not just Yah doing it. It's not just Moses doing it. Moses is saying, it ain't me that has this. Well, I'm paraphrasing now, okay? It's not me that has this ability, but Yah will do it when you tell me the day. Verse 10. So Pharaoh says, tomorrow. And he said, let it be according to your word, that you may know that there is no one like Yahweh our Elohim. And the frogs shall depart from you, from your houses, from your servants and from your people, and they shall remain in the river only. So Pharaoh says, I pick tomorrow. Moses says, you got it. Now let it be according to your word. You pick tomorrow. Tomorrow it's going to happen. So that you will know there is no one like Yahweh our Elohim. Verse 12. Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried out to Yah concerning the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And so Yah did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the courtyards, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. Round 2 of Stankville. But Pharaoh saw that there was relief, and he hardened his heart and did not heed them, as Yah had said. You see, there's people that are not going to change their mind for the Yah that we love. All right. Lice. Here we go. This one makes your head itch a little bit. Okay? And I want you to pay attention. This time, no warning. No warning. It's not go tell Pharaoh this. No warning to Pharaoh before it happens. This one happens to both the Egyptians and the land of Goshen, and the wise guys, they can't duplicate this one. Okay? And they recognize that it's the finger of Yah. Exodus 8, verse 16. So Yah said to Moses, say to Aaron, stretch out your rod and strike the dust of the land, so that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod. There's the rod again. He struck the dust of the earth, and it became lice on men and beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. How many of us know there's some dust in Egypt? There is some dust in Egypt. Verse 18. Now the magicians so worked with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there were lice on man and beast. Then the magicians said to Pharaoh, this is the finger of Elohim. But Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, just like Yah had said. Because Yah still has more power to show them. He still has more things to make the world aware of, to make Egypt aware of. Yah is not reacting to what is going on in this Exodus. He's orchestrating what is going on. He's not reacting to Pharaoh's hard heart. He's orchestrating this whole thing. He's in complete control. The rod of Aaron went from dead wood to a serpent that could and did eat, and then went back to the dead wood. I think I'm recapping without telling you that I'm recapping. The serpent that represents evil to the Egyptians was duplicated, but then it was devoured. It was overcome by what Yah put in place. These first three plagues happened to the Egyptians, but they also happened in Goshen. Yah was making his presence known to everyone. And I think he's going to do that again in the greater Exodus. The first two plagues were able to be duplicated by Pharaoh's wise guys. And again, I think it was trickery. I think it was sorcery. I don't think they really did it. I think it just appeared that they did it. Okay? That's my opinion. The third plague was not able to be duplicated by Pharaoh's wise guys, and they were wise enough to recognize that it was the finger of Elohim. Yah's not only confronting these perceived gods of the Egyptians, but he's showing them to be powerless against him. They're powerless against multi he's already defeated. Pharaoh claimed not to know Yah, and Yah is introducing himself to Pharaoh so that Pharaoh will know for sure who Yah is by the time he's done. Yah is also letting his people know that he is present. He has visited them. Remember that promise, okay? He's honoring this promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's bringing that to life to them right now. You remember, they didn't think so at first, because when he first came back, they made the announcement. When Moses first came back and they made the announcement, the workload went up. Make the bricks without the straw. You got to go find your own stubble. And they're like, wait a minute. This can't be visiting. Yep. It's part of the plan. The people doubted. Now he's increasing their faith too. There's less doubters after this third plague than there was when they were out gathering straw or gathering stubble. There's going to be similarities to what is taking place in our reading today when the greater Exodus happens. He is going to show the world. He is going to show his people. He's going to wake his people up to a serious thirst for his word. Will we recognize that time when we're in it? Like I just said, the people of Israel at first, they didn't recognize it as Yah coming back and getting ready to deliver them. Right? How could things go wrong? Where is God in all of this? Same place he was when his son hung on the tree, in complete control. Know for sure that Yah's coming for his people, us. Whether it's next week or in our time somewhere where it all kicks off, whether we get to see it or not, if I go to my grave before he comes back, I go to my grave knowing he's coming back. Yeshua Messiah will gather Yah's people that are scattered all over the earth, and he will lead us to the land promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And there will be both miracles and death along the way. Something we have to understand. And that's all I got. I finished a little bit early trying to make up for the last couple of times I finished late. Does anybody have any comments? Mordecai, I appreciate your input today. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Didn't the Pharaoh wore a cobra on his head, on his crown?
I saw a few crowns with a serpent on them. I'm not doing a lot of research into these gods, but I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I've not done a lot of study on these, but I do remember seeing some of the artifacts. The serpent was predominant in it, and I think it was on one of the crowns, but I don't know if it was Pharaoh's crown or what. Anybody else? That's it? All right, guys. I love y'all. Now it's time to